Welcome, everyone. We will get started. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to wait just a minute to let some
Good
other
afternoon.
folks. Hello. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program Equipment Rebate Voucher Reporting webinar. I am delighted to kick us off this afternoon. My name is Allison Robinson, and I am the voucher manager here at DOE. I'll also be joined by my team member, Shay Rupinski, who is an ORISE fellow with DOE. So I just want everyone to know that this Teams call is being recorded and may be posted to DOE's website or used internally. So if you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please mute yourself and do not speak during the call. If you do not wish to have your image recorded, please ensure your video or camera is turned off and you are just participating by phone. And so please note that if you speak during the call or use a video connection, you are presumed to be given consent to being recorded and the use of your voice or image. I also let you know that we will be posting this website, this webinar recording in the coming weeks to our application hub. So we'll encourage you to visit that as well as our other resources there. And additionally, we will send an email out notifying all of the folks here that the recording and slides are available. Throughout the presentation, we encourage you to use the chat to ask questions. We'll reserve at least 15 minutes at the end of this session to answer these questions. We will also be sharing any links as needed. If we're not able to answer your question today, please follow up via our EECBG email, which is eecbg@hq.doe.gov, or you can check our FAQ tab on the website. So again, I know we've just let in a bunch of folks here. So I just want to note that this webinar is being recorded and that if you don't want to hear your voice or see your face, please ensure your camera is off and that you are muted. All right, next slide, please. This webinar will review key reporting requirements for EECBG program equipment rebate vouchers, including deadlines and how to submit. So we want to note that this webinar is just for eligible local governments and tribes who are applying for equipment rebate vouchers. We will not be discussing reporting for technical assistance vouchers or any reporting related to traditional grants. So if that applies to you and you are not pursuing an equipment rebate, this webinar may not be useful for you. Please note we will have a future webinar on technical assistance reporting. Next slide, please. Why does reporting matter? So reporting is important because it facilitates communication and information sharing between the voucher recipient and voucher team, while also ensuring compliance and progress on projects and reducing the risk for waste, fraud, and abuse. Reporting also provides DOE with current and accurate data to understand program impact. Next slide, please. So we want to share some key reporting updates for you. So these are some changes that have happened since we held our last reporting webinar. That was at the end of May. And so we'll be sharing in this webinar some updates to the Davis-Bacon Act reporting requirements, and that includes how to register an LCP tracker and how you need to be in compliance with the payroll requirements of Davis-Bacon Act in LCP tracker. Also new, we're going to include a demo today, which we're really excited about how to review and complete reporting requirements in the voucher portal, since that is going to be your main reporting hub. And then please note that this webinar is going to become the new standard reference for equipment rebate reporting requirements. So we will be replacing the recording and slides from the May 30th webinar with this webinar, and this will become the go-to reference. Next slide, please. So here's our agenda for today. So we're going to start with our overview of our reporting, and we're going to go really in depth about the different reporting requirements. We're going to review a checklist of all the different reports that may be applicable to your project. And then we're going to do a summary and just show you at a glance what your reporting requirements are, when they're due, and where to submit. And then we'll go into a demo about how you'll submit your reporting in the voucher portal. Then we'll share some resources, and then we'll have about at least 15 minutes to do Q&A. So do please submit your questions in the chat. We'll try and answer some questions throughout the presentation, but we're really holding space for chats and questions at the end. So I see some hands raised. I would say please submit your question in the chat. I'm going to pause because I see some chats where folks aren't able to see the slides. So one thing to do is to leave and come back. That just might be the easiest. I am able to see the slides. I also see some comments about refreshing. All right, next slide, please. All right, so let's start with our reporting 101. How often do you need to report? So the reporting process actually begins once you get that application approval email from DOE stating that you can begin your project. Some of our reports are really project specific, so the amount of reporting will vary. Some projects will not have as much reporting requirements as others. So as if Davis-Bacon applies to your project, that's if you have hired a contractor to install equipment. So if you're using internal staff to install your equipment, or your equipment does not need any installation, such as an electric vehicle or a mobile charger, an e-bike, then Davis-Bacon Act does not apply. But if you have hired a contractor, an outside contractor, to complete your installation, that's when Davis-Bacon Act applies. And it has a weekly reporting requirement. There are other reports that are just twice a year or just annually. One annual one is the Historic Preservation Report that we'll be diving into later. So don't worry, we're going to get really in depth in this webinar on reporting. And I also want to say, please note that all final reports are due 121 calendar days after the end of your voucher period of performance. And we'll cover that more later. Next slide, please. All right, who should complete the reporting? Anyone who is an equipment rebate voucher recipient. If you are teaming with another entity, it's the lead applicant is responsible for reporting. The voucher portal, that's where you submitted your application, will serve as the primary platform for not only revising your application if your project changes, but also for submitting reporting requirements. We will note if a report should be submitted to a location that is not the voucher portal. And then we also want to flag that we have our great portal administrator here to provide the demo, and that you can reach out to them with any technical issues. That email address is eecbgvouchers@icf.com, and they're able to help with technical issues. Next slide, please. All right, so all equipment, our DOE voucher team is here to support you, and we will work with you to ensure you're able to meet reporting requirements. DOE's role is to review reports to support your project success, and our review includes desktop monitoring as well as site visits. So we're reviewing submitted reporting to assess progress towards goals and objectives, determine compliance with federal rules and regulations, track fiscal expenditures. And during our site visits, we will provide voucher recipients with in-person technical assistance that will enable successful execution of their EECBG awards, ensure and verify compliance with all federal regulations and program guidance, document success stories, and highlight EECBG program impact in communities. Next slide, please. All right, so now that we've covered our reporting 101, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Shay to begin the reporting overview. Next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Allison, for that introduction. In this section, we will begin with a quick reporting overview. So the reporting requirements for equipment rebate vouchers are covered in the Federal Assistance Reporting Checklist, which we have outlined here. The checklist is sent to you via email upon project application approval, and a copy will be available on the voucher portal for your reference. The Federal Assistance Reporting Checklist includes a checklist of all potential required reports for equipment rebate vouchers, as well as a detailed description of each requirement, including where each report should be submitted. Please note this report is generalized for all voucher recipients, so please read carefully as not all reports will be required for all projects. For example, NEPA logs, Davis-Bacon Act reporting, and the single audit report may or may not apply to your project. Next slide. Here we have listed out all reporting requirements that are included in the Federal Assistance Reporting Checklist. Reports that may be required for your voucher include the Tangible Personal Property Report or Post-Installation Report, Performance and Financial Report, Davis-Bacon Act reports, NEPA logs, the Historic Preservation Report, Location Report, and Single Audit. In total, there are about 8 reports that may be required for your project. Please note again that Davis-Bacon Act reports, NEPA logs, and single audits are listed as if applicable, as they may not apply to all projects. Copies of the reports listed here can be found for your reference in multiple places, including the Federal Assistance Reporting Checklist, the Voucher Portal, and grants.gov. In addition, the Voucher Portal now has a complete reporting section that will guide you through all reporting requirements, as well as have links to forms and pre-filled examples. We suggest you use the Voucher Portal as your one-stop shop to review your reporting needs and complete these requirements. Next slide. Okay, so I know throughout this process, we have said that equipment rebate vouchers will have reduced reporting burdens when compared to traditional grants, However, after reviewing that list of 8 reports, you may be feeling like that just isn't the case and perhaps a little overwhelmed, which is justified. So have we actually reduced the reporting burden for equipment rebate recipients? First off, we wanted to note that by law, equipment rebate vouchers are considered federal assistance and are therefore subject to the same reporting requirements as other federal grants. That being said, the EECBG program team has worked to reduce reporting requirements within these guidelines in a few ways. First, the frequency of reporting for equipment rebates is significantly reduced compared to grants. Reports such as the performance report and financial report are due up to 4 times a year or quarterly for some traditional grants. However, for equipment rebate vouchers, these reports are due annually or just once if you finish your project within the first year. In addition, our program uses NEPA SOs, which eliminate the need for every entity to file an EQ1 with the NEPA office and receive a unique NEPA determination for their project. Furthermore, entities may choose non-ground disturbing projects, which eliminates the need for NEPA logs altogether. In terms of Davis-Bacon Act requirements, entities can choose to use in-house staff for installation, which exempts them from DBA reporting. Next, while it may not feel lucky to have a formula allocation of less than $250,000 for a program, it does make you exempt from having to comply with Build America, Buy America requirements. In addition to the Build America, Buy America small grants waiver, the Good Jobs report has been eliminated for all equipment rebate recipients, full stop. Last but not least, the Voucher Portal now has a complete reporting section, as we mentioned, which includes instructions for filling reports, as well as pre-filled examples of standard forms for your reference and to use as a guide as you complete these reports. This means the Voucher Portal can be used as a one-stop shop for reviewing and completing reporting requirements. While some reporting requirements may not be better than none, we hope this demonstrates that the equipment rebate option does have a reduced reporting burden when compared to the traditional grants option. Next slide. Great. So in this next section, we'll go through the reporting checklist detailing each report in turn. After that, a demo of how to review these reports and complete them in the voucher portal will be done by our ICF representative, Mitch. So with that, next slide. The first required report is the Tangible Personal Property Report, or Post-Installation Report. If you have read some of our voucher guidance closely, such as the Voucher Handbook, you may have noticed that an installation report is required for equipment rebates. The Tangible Personal Property Report serves as the post-installation report and will be used to verify purchase and installation of eligible equipment and actual dollars spent. To drive that point home, I want to repeat that the Tangible Personal Property Report serves as the installation report and is required to verify purchases and receive your reimbursement. A final Tangible Personal Property Report is due within 30 days of completing equipment installation. The report includes standard form SF428, SF428B, and SF428S. Note that form SF428S is only required for equipment purchases that have a per unit cost of $5,000 or more. It is not required for purchases with a per unit cost less than $5,000. So for example, LED lighting. If you're installing LED lighting, you would not have to use SF428S if your per unit cost is less than $5,000. In addition to these forms, invoices, receipts, and timestamp photos should also be submitted. Please send raw photos so metadata is accessible and do not PDF them. This next comment is incredibly important for ensuring that you actually receive your voucher payment or reimbursement. In order to receive payment, you must ensure that the Tangible Personal Property Report lists an accurate and active Unique Entity Identifier, or UEI number from SAM.gov. Note that some governments have more than one UEI number, so please ensure that the one you list on the form is where you would actually like your payment to go. Reimbursements will be issued by an electronic check to the bank account associated with the UEI number listed on this report. In addition, please make sure your UEI is active in SAM.gov prior to submitting this report, as they periodically need reviewed. The Tangible Personal Property Report will be completed using a module in the voucher portal, which we will review in the next section. The module can be found by logging into the portal, selecting My Application, clicking on your application, and then selecting Post-Installation. Next slide. Note that if you ever dispose of the equipment purchased with the EECBG program funding, you will also need to request disposition instructions by submitting standard form SF428C to DOE. This form is only needed at time of disposition or sale if and when it occurs, and not at project closeout or following installation. Next slide. The next required report for all equipment rebate voucher recipients is the performance report. The performance report details activity status, milestones, financial metrics, process metrics, and qualitative descriptions. Milestones will detail if you have met your project goals. In other words, if you successfully purchased and installed your intended type and quantity of equipment as outlined in your voucher application. The financial metrics will detail the total funds you received from DOE through the EECBG program. The process metrics section of this report is particularly important as it will ask you to quantify actual energy savings from your project according to bipartisan infrastructure law, or bill metrics. Examples of bill metrics you may be asked to report on include estimated kilowatt hours of electricity saved annually or total capacity of solar PV systems installed. A full list of bill metrics can be viewed by following the link in this slide once available online, or by visiting the EECBG Program Application Hub at any time. Conversely to metrics, the qualitative description section provides an opportunity for you to share a written narrative of project success stories and challenges along the way. Some stories may even be shared publicly by DOE. The performance report will be completed using a module in the voucher portal and will be demoed in the next section of the webinar. The report can be found by logging into the portal, navigating to your application, clicking on the application, and then performance report. The performance report is due both annually by September 30th and as a final report within 120 days of project closeout. Please note, if you have not started work on your project by the annual reporting period, the annual performance report will be waived. In addition, if you complete your entire project in the first year, you may submit this report just once as a final report. Next slide. The next required report for all equipment rebate voucher recipients is the financial report, or standard form SF425. The financial report details federal expenditures and is where you will report total dollars received from the EECBG program. The financial report is completed by filling out standard form SF425 and uploading it directly to the voucher portal. This is done by logging into the portal, selecting My Applications, clicking on your application, and then reporting. Note that some aspects of the financial report may not apply to your specific project, such as unobligated balances or program income. Please enter 0 for line items that do not apply. The financial report is due both annually by September 30th and as a final report within 120 days of project closeout. Please note, if you have not started work on your project by the end of the annual reporting period date, the annual performance report will be waived. In addition, if you complete your entire project within the first year, you may submit this report just once as a final report. Next slide. Okay, so here's where we get into some of the updates from our last webinar. So next we're going to go over Davis-Bacon Act, or DBA reporting requirements. As stated, Davis-Bacon Act may not apply to all projects, so please review DBA requirements closely to determine if they apply to yours. In general, DBA applies anytime external laborers or contractors are hired to install your equipment, even if EECBG funds are not covering this installation cost. In order to comply with DBA, 2 reports are required, including weekly payroll reports and semi-annual reports. First, weekly payroll reports should be submitted weekly during equipment installation and should include a record of hours worked and wages paid, including fringe benefit contributions and certified payrolls. To reiterate, payroll reports are only required while installation work is conducted. Grantees are responsible for tracking and maintaining DBA records for all contractors. Weekly payroll reports should be submitted using the LCP tracker. If LCP tracker registration is not complete by the time the project begins, entities should collect payroll reports directly from contractors to be uploaded to the tracker retroactively. LCP tracker registration will be reviewed on the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. LCP tracker registration is a multi-step process that requires assistance from the voucher team to complete. Before beginning contracted labor to complete equipment installation, entities and contractors should take LCP tracker training. Both live and recorded sessions of the training are available. However, live sessions offer the benefit of being able to ask questions and converse with an LCP tracker instructor, so we do recommend these live versions. To attend a live session, register no later than the day before the class by emailing the email listed on the screen, training-doe-bill-gbls@lcptracker.com. A class schedule can be found by following the link on the slide. Next, 1 month prior to starting DBA activities, the LCP Tracker project information intake form should be completed and sent to the voucher team. The intake form will require you to list basic project information, including when the labor contract was awarded and the estimated completion date for your project, among other information. A PDF of prevailing wages used for the project region should also be included with the intake form. Prevailing wages can be found on sam.gov by navigating to the site and selecting wage determinations. Once the project intake form is complete, the voucher team will submit the project details to LCP Tracker for registration. Upon submission, the entity point of contact will receive a confirmation and next step email with a timeline of project registration and any additional information needed from the LCP Tracker team. Once your registration is complete and your project has been added, you will be able to add your contractor to your account by using the contractor role intake form. Once the contractor is added, they will then be able to upload weekly payroll reports for our collection and your review. Note that all users who register in the LCP Tracker will have to appear virtually on camera to provide proof of identity to an LCP Tracker support team representative. We ourselves have also had to do this in order to assist you guys with registration, and it is a quick process. It only takes about 5 minutes, so just a heads up there. With that, next slide. Next, the DBA's semi-annual report details entities' compliance and enforcement of the labor standards provision of the Davis-Bacon Act. The semi-annual DBA report is completed using a standard form and should be uploaded to the voucher portal. This is done by logging into the portal, selecting My Applications, clicking on the application, then reporting. The semi-annual report is due by March 31st and September 30th of each year. Semi-annual reports should be submitted even when no active installation or project is occurring. If no work has yet occurred, you may enter 0 or NA in applicable fields before submitting. Next slide. Okay, next we are transitioning into some NEPA reports. So we're going to start with the Historic Preservation Report. The Historic Preservation Report certifies activities covered by a historic preservation programmatic agreement and should be submitted by all equipment rebate voucher recipients. The Historic Preservation Report is completed by filling out a Microsoft form online and is due by September 15th of each year for the duration of your project. Note that the link to the form will only be active from September 1st through September 15th in order to ensure timely and accurate reporting. You will not be able to access the link or complete the form outside of those dates. Note that the Historic Preservation Report will ask you to report on the number of activities that are covered by the Historic Preservation Agreement. Activities are defined as the number of locations where installation is occurring. For example, if your city is installing 500 light bulbs in 3 buildings, this is considered 3 total activities for the purposes of this report. Next slide. Next, NEPA logs are a report that is only required for entities using NEPA SO1 for their EECBG program voucher. NEPA logs serve to verify activities covered by NEPA SO1 and ensure that no additional environmental review is required. A NEPA log should be completed and submitted before a project begins. NEPA logs are completed using a standard Excel workbook and should be uploaded to the voucher portal as well as emailed to eecbg.nepa.ee.doe.gov. Logs can be uploaded to the voucher portal by logging into the portal, selecting My Applications, clicking on the application, then reporting. NEPA logs may be submitted once if locations of work are known and permanent. If the locations of work change after submitting an initial NEPA log, an updated NEPA log should be submitted as soon as possible or quarterly as changes to the project occur. If locations of work do not change, only one NEPA log needs to be submitted at the beginning of your project. Next slide. Next, we have the one-time location report. The location report is used to verify locations of EECBG program projects. This report is completed by filling out a standard Excel workbook and should be uploaded to the voucher portal. This is done by logging into the portal, selecting My Applications, clicking on the application, then reporting. The location report is due only once and can be completed anytime during the project once locations of work are known, but preferably within the first year of the project. Note that grayed out columns do not need to be completed. Next slide. Oh, could we go back one? Great. So last but not least, we have the single audit report. Single audits are only required for entities that expend $750,000 or more in federal awards during their fiscal year. Audits are due within 30 days of receiving an auditor's report or 9 months after the end of the auditing period. Single audits should be submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse using the link referenced in this slide. Next slide. Okay, so we made it through the checklist. Next, we're going to review some summary reporting tables that provide a consolidated resource for reviewing reporting requirements. Next slide. So here we have part 1 of the reporting summary tables. This consolidated list details the frequency of reporting requirements, the name of the report, where the report should be submitted, and the due date. We like the summary just because it makes things a little short and sweet compared to that federal assistance reporting checklist that you get when your project is approved. Again, there are 8 possible reports for the equipment rebate voucher, but not all required for every project. So please review carefully. Again, audits, Davis-Bacon Act, and NEPA logs may not apply to your project. So next slide, please. Here we have a summary of the remaining reports. And as an example, we have listed here the historic preservation report, which is due annually by filling out the linked Microsoft form by September 15th, as well as the location report, which is due once within the first year of your project, completed using an Excel workbook and uploaded to the voucher portal. Next slide. Awesome. So at this point, I would like to thank you for your attention as we did that deep dive into each reporting requirement. And I will now turn it over to one of our voucher administrators, Mitch Brown, to do a live demonstration of reporting in the voucher portal. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Shay. Thanks, everyone. So now we're going to just look specifically at how you actually submit reports through the portal and kind of what the whole interface looks like. So everyone's comfortable with going back in once the due dates come up and once you're ready to start uploading and sharing reports. So with that, here I'm sharing screen to show, this is really the homepage of the EECBG Program voucher portal. And you guys have been into this to submit your application already. And if you haven't submitted an application, this is where that occurs. But we're going to really focus on assuming your application's already submitted. So you have a My Application here, and you're going to basically click into that and look at your submitted applications. And we're going to first focus on the reports that are relevant to your project that's been pre-approved by DOE. So at this point, you've gotten that email saying, here's your terms and conditions, or here's the federal assistance reporting checklist, and you have been pre-approved to proceed and start your project. So in this case, my sort of sample project here is in progress, and that's the status for your project once it's been pre-approved. So I'm going to open that up by clicking the link. And then once you go in to your application, you'll be able to see some tabs here. Specifically, you've got reporting, post-installation, and the performance report. And so I like to think of these as in chronological order in terms of how they're positioned here on the screen. So the reporting is really where you're going to land first to look at specific reports that you'll need to do once your project's been pre-approved and as it's kind of being implemented. And then post-installation is where you'll go after you're complete with your project, you've installed the equipment, maybe you purchased an EV and you're ready to apply for reimbursement. That's post-installation. And then performance report is really the final activity that you do after your application's been approved, the voucher payment's been made. So you've received reimbursement and you're kind of closing things out and doing your performance report. So with reporting, that's now accessible because I'm in project in progress. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that. And this really is laid out very similarly to kind of the content that Shay just covered, and includes a recap of some of the details for each type of report. Overall, this is another good reference to be looking at for just more information and links and things like that. The first one here is listed as required for all applicants. So really, any and all voucher projects will have to do a financial report, SF 425, and this is done after the voucher payment's been received. So really, you're not going to start this report until you've received payment on the voucher, and this is submitted one time with that information in the report that reflects the payment you've received. So if your allocation was $75,000 and you use that up through the purchase of 2 electric vehicles and you're reimbursed the $75,000, then that's going to be the value that you put into this report as you fill it out, and then you upload it here, and that's done. The one-time location report, again, was just explained pretty thoroughly, so I'm not going to go back through that, but the link here takes you to that spreadsheet template, so you'll fill that out. And this is, again, completed really within the first year of the project, once all address information and details are finalized, you have that ready, you can just fill that out in this spreadsheet template and upload it. So that's a pretty simple process. And then the third report here, again, is required for all applicants, and that's the annual historic preservation report. So this is done once per year. Here's the link. And just a note, some people have probably tried to use this link already. It's actually not turned on yet. It's not live. It is due September 15 each year. So the idea and the plan is for DOE to activate this report, and this link will turn on to be accessible starting the 1st of the month. So the 1st of September, this will be open and you can go in and actually complete this report just via this link. And the portal is going to ask that, have you completed it? You say yes, and then submit that. And that basically logs on our side that, you know, you've gone in and submitted that or completed that report via the link. Now I'm going to talk through just quickly. So these are reports that are only if applicable. So it really depends on what type of project you're implementing with your grant funds. So let's take one example first, a more simple project that doesn't involve a lot of layers to it. So that would be you're purchasing, again, like 2 electric vehicles. You're using the $75,000 towards these 2 vehicles. There's no contracted labor. There's no ground disturbance. So in that case, your NEPA reporting is very minimal. You've already filled out your statement of work. You would say, does your project involve ground disturbing activities? No, it doesn't. And you would submit that. And then it would also ask, are you subject to Davis-Bacon? In the case of this vehicle project, no, you're not, because you're just purchasing vehicles. And then you would submit that. And then lastly, the single audit report, which again is not necessarily always going to be required. It depends what your overall expenditure of federal funds are. So there's some more information here on that. And if you do exceed that threshold, there's some more detail here. Yes, maybe you do. Therefore, there's again some detail on like if your single audit's uploaded to the federal clearing website or not, et cetera, et cetera. So again, that's kind of a simple extent of all the reports you'd have to do if you're doing vehicles as the kind of first case. The second scenario let's look at would be you're actually hiring a team of contractors to install a large heat pump system on your city hall. So in that case, you've got contracted labor, but you don't have any ground disturbing activities. So you're going to say no to NEPA. And then, but you do have Davis-Bacon. So you're going to say, yes, we have Davis-Bacon that we're subject to for that project. And again, some links here will take you to LCP and provide a little more detail for LCP. And then we also have a space here for you to upload a semi-annual report. And depending on the period of time you're representing in that report, you would select this dropdown and specify. So the most recent one, if you started work, say in June on this heat pump project, then you would want to reflect that your semi-annual report is for April through September of this year. And then you would upload that and complete it accordingly. So that's your Davis-Bacon. And then all the LCP access would come through this other link that you could, you'll basically be taken to the site. You'll need to log in. And as Shay explained, there's a process to get that login set up. So again, pretty straightforward. Just a little more extra reporting if you have Davis-Bacon that you're going to have to also report on, and then single audit at the bottom. So all this is laid out in the portal. And for NEPA reporting, if you are doing a ground disturbing project, say it's an electric vehicle charging station and you're going to be doing some foundation work, you would say yes to that. And then there's an explanation of how to complete the NEPA log and really what the process is there with a link to get to the NEPA log. So, and then you would just upload that spreadsheet, completed NEPA log, and then move on from there. So that is really the main activity that would take place for reports within the reporting tab. And again, there's going to be, milestones. So like historic preservation report is September 15th is that key milestone every year. It's going to be due. But each report, it might just be you do it once at the closeout or at the end, like SF 425, and then one-time location, really within that first year, get it done, submit it, upload it, and then NEPA log again is on the front end. You start that project or process if it's applicable, and then Davis-Bacon is a more ongoing basis, and then the semi-annual is the second part for that. All right, so let's now go into post-installation, and this is really at the stage our project is complete. So let's go back to that vehicle scenario. We've purchased the 2 vehicles, and now we're ready to apply for reimbursement and receive our funds from DOE. So we go into this tab post-installation. There's some instructions on the first page. And really the first step is to certify that we have completed our project, paid our invoices, and we're now ready to receive that reimbursement. So it's really just a clarifying checkbox there at the front end. And then you also will put in a request for reimbursement. So this would be the specific amount of funding that you're allowed to receive from DOE and what's actually being requested given the cost of your project. So we bought 2 vehicles. Our allocation was 100,000 in this case, and we were approved through our application for also the 100,000. And so we cannot exceed that for our request, but say we end up getting a lower cost vehicles in this case, and it was 97,000 for our request or for our cost, and that would be the amount that we would actually put in for this request for reimbursement. And since it is lower than the allocation amount, that's fine. And so we would just keep moving and say next. And the invoice is proof of purchase. So this would be specific documents showing that the equipment matches. So the 2 vehicles here, the specs, it's a Ford F-150 Lightning, et cetera, et cetera. So all the details there, and that it was purchased at a specific date and things like that. So we'll just, as an example, upload something because the system does require that you actually make an upload to keep moving. So if I do that, let's see, let's take a second. My desktop, whoops. So paid invoice, and that will go in, and then we'll keep moving through the next steps. And for a vehicle, we want to see photos that the vehicles are sitting at your property on your lot. We'd also like to see the VIN number photo that would match the documentation and the invoice. So any photo of the VIN number, license plate, things like that. And the raw JPEG photo is what we want to see, not PDFs, so that we can actually look at the metadata and see that the date of the photo was taken at a certain date, as well as the location will be included there. So that's helpful. There we have photos. And then lastly, the SF428 this is the portion of the portal where you're going to upload these tangible personal property reports. So we have pre-filled examples here, and then we upload each one that's specific to the project. So these pre-filled versions, though, can be good guides to knowing exactly how to fill out each field. I'm just going to upload that as an example. And then really that's the third category in the final step here. And the last thing is you sort of certify the information and sign that everything's accurate, check the box, put your name in. It's just a typed in signature, hit next. And that really is the final step there to upload everything and submit it. And then on our side, we'll get a notification that it's time to review this. and we'll follow up if there's any questions or anything else we need to clarify with you. So that's post-installation. That's when you're done with your project. You've paid for everything, and you've also commissioned and received all the equipment, et cetera. So you've got all that eligible equipment in your possession. You've got your invoices, your photos ready, as well as the SF 428s are filled out. So that's really what that step is all about. And then lastly, I'll just quickly hit on the performance report, which actually I'm going to need to go back to my applications here. So for the performance report, it's really done at the end, and that would be once your voucher payment has been approved by DOE. So that's after you've submitted your photos, your invoice, your 428s, we've reviewed everything, and the payment's been made, and it's approved. Then your status would go to this, and you're able to fill out your performance report. So that's really when performance report kicks in and you're able to access it. So if you did try to access performance report when your application is in project in progress, it would actually not appear. So you do wait until you've been approved to start this out. So first page here just gives you a little bit of instructions. The name of your application, in this case, it's a test, and we'll kind of auto-populate some details based on what's in your application, basically. So then this is like really a read-only screen that's pulling data from your application. So in this case, the eligible activity under EECBG for my project is conservation of transportation energy. And that's been, predetermined because that's how my application was approved. And then next, so this is really just a review of that. You'll go to your project summary. So this, again, right now it says test, but this is going to pull from what your application summary was written up as, and it can be edited if there's any scope changes or things that can more accurately describe what your project summary was. So this is an opportunity to just put some finishing touches on explaining what the project's scope was, what the equipment that was installed, and location and things like that. So that can be written in as part of this project summary. And then milestones really just includes what was the category of equipment and the type. In this case, electric vehicles, there are 3 of them. And that again is read only. It's just going to pull from your application. So that's a auto-populated section. And then the financial metrics is also auto-populated, and it's going to pull from what your payment was. And in this case, this is a test. It's normally going to be higher than this and equal to your total voucher payment. And that will just show up there. And then you'll just kind of click through to next. So a lot of this, again, is pretty user-friendly because it's already just pulling from an existing application field. Now, the process metrics. So this part does maybe require a little extra work and some details. So this was where you're going to put in what were the metrics associated with your project. So for this, we bought 3 vehicles. And so we're going to use transportation infrastructure and vehicles. And if I check that box, it's going to give me some additional drop downs and required boxes that you have to check. In this case, we bought 3 EVs. So I can say alternative vehicles purchased by fuel type, and basically hit 3 and then hit next and enter that. And then you can also add additional metrics here. So equipment purchased, and it's going to give me the option to add more. So units of a number of energy efficient units. And then this again, so 3. It's kind of a more custom field at the bottom. So it gives you some flexibility to add more detail there. But really, the idea is to capture whatever relevant metric is associated with your project. So if you have solar panels, you put renewable energy and include something on like the total kilowatts of the project. If you're doing retrofits and you have, a building that's getting LED lighting, you may ask for some details on that. Here are the options for retrofits, the buildings retrofitted by sector. And so you'll have the ability to just fill out whatever is relevant to your project, and you can add multiple metrics before you hit next there. So let's go ahead and say that we've uncheck retrofits. We filled out a couple describing the vehicles. And then this last part is really just qualitative description. So these are some narrative questions that you'll need to fill out regarding how your project went and some general background. So what was the rationale in terms of how this impacted your infrastructure and your community, things like that. And then the second part is just, was there any, changes or things that came up that were barriers to implementing the project, accomplishments. So maybe some positive news that came out of the project, or maybe some recognition and things like that with links you could put in there. And then performance outcome data collected. So if there's any, if it was like an e-bike share program and you bought 10 e-bikes, if there's any data on how much utilization that those e-bikes have gotten, maybe it's miles used by the vehicles, if you've already started using the vehicles, things like that. So just some general performance outcomes that you may have data for. If you got that, you can plug that in. So that's all really the qualitative part. And you have the ability to save some of this for later and go back and access a draft performance report if you need more time to complete some of these fields. But really the process metrics and the qualitative part are going to be the main parts where you need to add content or come up with some metrics and data points, et cetera. So that's really a summary of the 3 sections here. And really just to recap, if folks are saying, okay, I haven't actually been in this portal, that was my coworker who did this, 6 months ago when you guys submitted your application, not to worry, you can request access to the portal if you need to by emailing the EECBG vouchers at icf.com email address. And there's also a way we can add new users, but also if you're a user that did not submit the application, but you're with the same organization. So say you're City of Seattle and who submitted the application, but you're going to be the one doing the reports. That's fine. You can still, once you log into the portal, you'll be able to access the application that was submitted by your coworker, as long as it's part of the same City of Seattle account in this case. So that's, the access to application and reports can be done through multiple people associated with the same organization. So I wanted to clarify that as well. But really that's all I had to demo for now, and I look forward to any questions and having everyone start, doing the reports in the portal. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mitch. We'll give it a minute to go back to our slide deck. So we'll be moving into discussing some resources. We've been trying to share some resources in the chat. All right, so all right, resources. So we've been sharing some of these resources in the chat, so we just want to discuss them here. So these are links and to DOE web pages and resources. They're for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law process metrics. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is what funds EECBG, as well as the Davis-Bacon Act. I know there's been a lot of questions about Davis-Bacon Act. I've been trying to address some of them in chat, and we can definitely discuss them more in the Q&A session. Additionally, there's some resources on Build America, Buy America. I just want to note that Build America, Buy America does not apply to your project if your EECBG allocation is under $250,000. Also, we have links and resources for the National Environmental Policy Act. So we really encourage you to review these websites for more detailed information. If you have any questions, please email the EECBG program team. So that's our full program team. That email address is eecbg@hq.doe.gov. You'll probably be noticing that we've been sharing some other email addresses. We've been sharing the email address for our DOE voucher team. That includes Shay and myself, as well as an email address for the portal team. That's who Mitch represents. And so we have these inboxes that go to multiple folks. It's checked many times throughout the day. We try and get back to you as quickly as possible. This is the best way to get direct assistance. Unfortunately, we don't have a phone number. We're a national team, so we're all spread throughout the country, and so emailing us is the best way to get assistance, and we're happy to set up one-on-one emails as needed. And so additionally, you can get more direct support by attending our bi-weekly office hours. These are Fridays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And so there's a lot of ways that you can connect with our team to get that one-on-one support. I'll also just note that everyone, upon your project's approval, you receive what's, as Shay noted, the Federal Assistance Reporting Checklist, the FARC. We really encourage you to dive into that. It's got a lot of detailed information that we covered here. So this is just another resource to help you through reporting. All right, next slide. So we also want to encourage you to sign up for a blueprint cohort. This can be if you are following a blueprint, if you're not following a blueprint, but some of these topics are on the right are applicable to you and you would like more information, please consider joining a cohort. They're open to everyone. And so these are monthly meetings led by experts, and they're attended by folks such as yourself, and it's got a great peer learning component. So these are 90-minute monthly sessions, and they provide background and context for energy work. Additionally, it's an opportunity for networking. And you also have an option to connect one-on-one with other participants. And so you can see a list of some of the experts who are leading the sessions, including EECBG and others. So there's a link on the slide on how you can sign up, or if you're feeling fancy, you could scan that QR code. Next slide, please. Now we're going to dive into the Q&A. Next slide, please. We're going to start with some frequently asked questions. So I saw this question in the chat that I responded to, so I just want to reiterate to folks. So should you submit multiple tangible personal property reports? No, we want to wait until your project is complete. We know some projects have multiple components. Maybe it's lighting and windows, EVs and EV chargers. You should wait until your full project is complete and all equipment components are installed. And that's when you want to submit the tangible personal property report, because you're going to be issued a single reimbursement for all components of your project. So should I submit a separate report for different items? No, you want to list all of your equipment. Everything you purchased that is equipment goes into the tangible personal property report. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we just go back to that? Thank you. So is this equipment that I've installed considered government owned? This is a specific question on the tangible personal property report that we want to highlight. So no, you are purchasing equipment that you are owning. And so you want to select that option that is not government-owned property. So it's only considered government-owned when DOE is listed in that equipment's title. Next slide, please. So how do I report Build America, Buy America compliance? So like I mentioned earlier, Build America, Buy America only applies if your allocation is above $250,000 and there's no formal report. However, you should be able to demonstrate compliance upon request, and you may be asked to demonstrate BABA compliance as part of DOE's monitoring procedures. So we talked about DOE, the very beginning of the webinar, we talked about DOE conducting desktop monitoring, which is where we just reach out to you for a meeting, or a site visit where we visit you on site to look at your equipment. And so if your allocation is above that 250,000 threshold, that's when BABA compliance comes into play. So should I complete DBA training, and if so, how? So we definitely recommend completing DBA training. There's a list of webinars here. We know that there has been a lot of questions about LCP Tracker that we can dive into. I also want to take a moment to recognize that some LCP Tracker is new to folks. It's also new to our voucher team. We have been coordinating with the DOE team who leads the DBA work, and so they coordinate between DOE and the Department of Labor, and we have been hoping with their support to receive approval to have payroll be just submitted to the portal. Unfortunately, that did not happen. So I know our previous guidance was just to submit to the portal. However, we have received new direction very recently that unfortunately our voucher equipment rebate entities who are using outside contractors for installation have to use LCP Tracker. We can talk about that more later, but I do want to recognize that that is a change from what we've said before and explain why that change happened. So what if your internal government staff is installing the equipment? DBA does not apply. So again, the two situations where DBA does not apply is your internal staff, so someone who is on the city or the tribe's payroll is installing the equipment, or the equipment does not need to be installed, such as an EV, e-bike. DBA applies when a hired contractor, so someone who is outside of your entity, installs the project equipment. All right, what is an EQ1 and how do I know if I need one? This is about NEPA. So an EQ1 stands for Environmental Questionnaire. One is just the stage. It has a couple stages. These are needed for projects that are outside of the scope that is listed in the NEPA Statement of Works. For example, if you are installing a solar array that is larger than 60 kilowatts, so we will work with you if you need an EQ1. And should I submit NEPA logs if my project has an EQ1 instead of a NEPA SOW? So no, you will not submit NEPA logs if you have an EQ1. You will have a unique project determination. So NEPA logs are really applying if you have NEPA Statement of Work 1. So that means you are a local government and there's ground disturbance in your project. That's where NEPA logs apply. Next slide, please. Okay, now we will be taking questions from you. So this is a facilitated Q&A, so please remain on mute. We're going to have our colleague Leaf, who is taking questions directly from the chat that you've submitted, and Shay and I will be answering them now. So Leaf, when you're ready.
Allison, thanks so much for this presentation, and thanks everyone for joining. So the questions next that I'll be asking to our voucher team are taken directly from the chat that you all have submitted. So first we'll start with some general questions for Allison and Shay. The first question we have is, do we reach out to ICF, the voucher portal administrator, for questions about reporting?
Yes, ICF is well versed on reporting requirements, as Mitch demonstrated, and so you can email them for assistance with reporting.
Great. The next question, and this one can be for Shay, will we receive email reminders that reports are due?
Yes, you will receive general email reminders. In fact, we're getting ready to email anyone who has an approved application about the upcoming semi-annual Davis-Bacon Act reporting that's due and the historic preservation report. So be on the lookout for those from time to time.
Excellent. Thanks, Shay. The next question is, I feel like there is some conflicting guidance about annual reporting and final reporting. Can you clarify that, please?
Yes. So, and is it possible, Leaf, while we're talking, if we could go to that slide? I don't mean for you to feel double duty. So these are, first of all, these are due September 30th. And you might say, hey, that is also the end of the fiscal year for the government. And so we do want to note that there is a 30-day grace period, and this is outlined in the FARC. And so the annual report and the final performance report, they are the same report. So let's say it is now, so today is August 22nd, 2024, and you have done nothing on your EECBG project. You have approved application, but you have not done any work. You do not need to do an annual reporting or a final report because no project work has happened. If you have hired a contractor and they have started work, or you have purchased 2 EVs out of 4 EVs, that means work has happened on your project. If your project is started and incomplete, that's when you submit the annual performance report. So your project activity has happened on your project, but is not complete. Let's say you have purchased 2 EVs and that's it. That's your project. You're done. That's when you're submitting the final performance report. You do not have to submit an annual and final if your project completed within this first fiscal year. So where you're submitting multiple performance report is, let's say it is fiscal year 24 and you purchased 2 EVs, and then in the next fiscal year, you purchase 2 additional EVs. That means you have project activity happening in 2 different fiscal years. So the first year, you're submitting the annual performance report on updating on your project activity that happened in that fiscal year. And then the second year, you're submitting the final report about your full project. So I will turn over to Shay to add anything else that I missed.
Nothing to add. I think that's a great summary.
Great. Back to you, Leaf.
Great. And folks will be able to dig into this in the slide once it's posted on our website as well. So the next question is, I submitted a location report via email a few months ago before this reporting page was active. Should I resubmit this report using this new feature?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have a record of your report. However, we suggest that you do use the reporting module that's now live. It just helps for some tracking on the back end and to ensure that we're not double emailing you to send stuff or submit reports that you already have. So yes, we do recommend going back in and submitting it there. Also a good opportunity to kind of play around with that module and get familiar up front.
I think we'll do around 2 more questions. So this is a question about DBA. Does my contractor need to sign up in the LCP tracker, or can they share their payroll with us and we can submit on their behalf?
Yeah, that is a great question. So there's essentially 2 options. And then I'll note that our DOE team is working on getting set up so that we can start registering folks in LCP tracker. So we are reaching out to entities to get you registered, and that it is fine for you to start your project even if you're not an LCP tracker. So once you are in LCP tracker, you have 2 options on how to certify the payroll. One is to register your contractor, and so that the contractor can upload the payroll themselves. The other option is you can collect the payroll from your contractor upload it to your account and certify it in LCP Tracker there. So we know that folks may have projects where DBA applies that are already completed, and maybe you just have the payroll because that is the direction we had provided earlier. So we can work with you to upload that payroll that you already have from the contractor into LCP Tracker and certify it that way.
And this is a final question on NEPA. If we have not begun the project by September 15th of 2024, do we have to complete the historic preservation report?
Yes, you do. So technically, even if you haven't made progress on your project, once you're approved, that kind of begins the reporting period for many of these reports. And so for the historic preservation report, yes, you want to submit it even if you haven't begun work. Again, you'll be able to enter 0 where applicable, and we'll be sending out a reminder on that soon with instructions on how to fill out that report. So stay tuned.
Great. Thanks, Shay. Let's do one more question if folks want to stick around. So another general question was, it might be tricky to take photos if, say, we are purchasing thousands of LED lights. How do you suggest that we proceed? This is a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a lot of projects with LEDs, and yes, it would be quite insane if we asked you to photograph thousands of photos of LEDs. So what we would like is for you to take, it can be a far away, so like a photo of all the lighting installed in a hallway, a room, and street lights, so that we can get a sample of size. So it does not have to be every single bulb, but if you have photos of the installed equipment, some close-ups will be great, and some far-away pictures will be great. And we'll reach out if anything additional is needed, but it does not have to be 1,000 separate photos of installed LEDs.
I think with that, we're all set. I'll hand it back to you, Allison.
Thanks, Leaf. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I know there's still a lot of questions. So again, I want to reiterate our resources available. You can send an email to our inbox. We are happy to have one-on-one meetings to dive into the reporting requirements specific to your project. We also encourage you to review these resources listed here. We encourage you to join office hours to get your questions answered in real time. And again, if you email eecbg@hq.doe.gov, that goes to an inbox that is checked several times throughout the day. And then we've included other emails on how to reach our DOE voucher team, as well as our portal administrator. We appreciate your time today. We look forward to working with you, and we really appreciate all the work that you're doing to increase energy efficiency in your community. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.